This kind of person has no business in first class, Gate Agent Carla Rodriguez snarled, flicking the lighter. The small flame danced toward Dr. Evelyn Hayes's passport. Carla's sausage-like fingers clutched the dark blue document over a steel trash can. Her eyes bored into Evelyn's, relishing the dawning horror on her face. Evelyn's gasp was sharp. Around them, travelers quickly raised their cell phones. Carla swiped Evelyn's boarding pass from the podium with a sweep of her arm. The flimsy paper drifted to the grimy terminal floor near Evelyn's simple flats. "Go on, sweetheart. Down you go." The lighter's flame touched the passport's edge. The gold eagle emblem began to distort and char. Black smoke curled toward the ceiling. "Stop that recording!" Carla snapped at the passengers. "This con artist doesn't get an audience." Evelyn's leather satchel slid from her arm. Her federal ID case remained zipped securely inside. Have you ever been so thoroughly dehumanized that a stranger attempted to incinerate your legal identity in front of a live audience? The passport's edge caught fire. Carla's smirk grew as she watched the federal seal bubble into a black smear. "That's better," she coughed, flicking the burning booklet into the trash can. Problem handled. Evelyn watched her identity turn to ash. The blue cover curled and popped, her photograph melting in the heat, her features vanishing behind a wave of bubbling plastic. "You've just incinerated a federal document," Evelyn stated, her voice steady. "I incinerated a counterfeit." Carla folded her arms, smug satisfaction oozing from her. "It's how we handle garbage in the premium cabin." A young passenger, Chloe Williams, held her phone steady, live streaming to 19,000 followers. Her comment section scrolled wildly. "OMG, she's actually doing it, and someone get the airport police now." The departures screen flickered. Flight 818, boarding 38 minutes remaining. Evelyn's government-issued cell phone vibrated silently in her pocket. The caller ID displayed HQ Director, Priority. She ignored it. Acrid smoke from the trash can tripped a nearby sensor. A janitor hurried over with an extinguisher, but Carla dismissed him. "Just some routine document disposal. Move along." A businessman, David Chen, live-streamed from his seat at the gate. His Instagram caption read, "Prejudiced airline employee just burned a black woman's passport at ATL." In less than a minute, the hashtag Yachur Passport on Fire began to trend. Evelyn knelt to pick up her boarding pass from the floor. It was now smudged with dirt. "Stay right there," Carla ordered. "Suits you." Passengers audibly gasped. Several more began recording at that specific command. Evelyn rose to her feet, boarding pass clutched in her hand. Her first-class ticket bore a faint federal travel authorization stamp in the upper right corner. Her satchel contained her Department of Transportation investigator credentials, still out of sight. "Ma'am, I am required to board this plane," Evelyn said, her tone even. "Not without a passport, you're not." Carla poked the charred remnants with a ballpoint pen. "Look at it. These knockoffs always go up fast." The pages of the passport had come apart, showing Evelyn's entry stamps from dozens of international assignments. Official visas had turned to carbon. A career of official government travel was now just soot. "I can confirm my identity through your system," Evelyn offered. "System's offline," Carla lied without a blink. "Besides, someone with a fake passport probably has a dozen fake IDs. What's in the bag? A phony birth certificate?" Evelyn's phone vibrated again, this time with a call from the Federal Air Marshal Service. Airport Police Officer Kevin O'Malley arrived, drawn by the smell of smoke and the agitated crowd. He saw the remains in the trash can and made an instant assumption. "What's going on here?" he asked Carla. "Fraudulent document. It's been properly disposed of." Carla pointed to the smoking can. "This individual attempted to board using an obvious counterfeit." O'Malley looked at the ash. "Ma'am, did you attempt to use a fake document in this airport?" "That was a valid United States passport," Evelyn replied. "Sure it was," Carla scoffed. "That's why it burned up like a paper towel. The real ones have security features." Onlookers began to take sides. A man in a golf shirt gave Carla a thumbs up. "Nice work. Got to stay vigilant." But younger travelers continued their outraged streaming. Chloe's viewer count topped 90,000. Comments were demanding an FBI response. Evelyn's satchel shifted, and the small metal chain of her official badge became briefly visible. She subtly adjusted the strap, keeping it hidden. Supervisor Sharon Price hurried to the gate, responding to alerts about a fire. She took in the scene: the smoldering can, the police presence, the sea of cell phones, and Evelyn standing calmly in the middle of it all. "Carla, explain." "Fraudulent passport. I neutralized the threat according to protocol." Carla's shoulders squared with self-importance. "I protected this airline from a potential security breach." Sharon peered into the trash can. Charred bits of Evelyn's photo were still there. The plastic melted over her face. "Ma'am," Sharon addressed Evelyn with poorly veiled contempt. "Presenting fraudulent documents is a felony. You'll have to come with us for questioning." Evelyn's phone rang once more. The screen showed DOT emergency command. "I have to answer this," Evelyn said. "You have to comply with our procedures," Sharon shot back. "Criminals don't make demands." The departures screen changed. Flight 819 boarding, 32 minutes remaining. Evelyn watched her federal identification smolder. The gold lettering on the passport's cover had completely melted away. The page detailing her diplomatic privileges was now a black, brittle crisp. More officers were arriving. The gate was filling with uniforms, every single one viewing Evelyn as the perpetrator, not the victim of a federal crime. Carla savored the reinforcement. "It's always the ones who act calm who are pulling the biggest scams," she announced to the crowd. "Thank goodness I have an eye for this sort of thing." Evelyn's government credentials remained hidden. Her priority status boarding pass, which Carla had deemed fake, was creased in her hand. Her secure government phone kept vibrating with high-priority federal calls she could not answer. The fire had subsided to a dull orange glow at the bottom of the can, but smoke continued to rise. Evelyn's identity was now nothing more than evidence of a crime that the entire airport staff believed she had committed. Gate manager Robert Miller sprinted over, his face pinched from the bitter smell. He saw the smoking trash can, the circle of officers, and the dozens of phones pointed at the scene. "What in God's name is on fire at my gate?" he yelled. "Document fraud," Sharon reported crisply. "Carla stopped this woman trying to use a counterfeit. Evidence has been contained." Robert looked into the can. Evelyn's passport photo looked up at him, one side of her face gone. The official seal had dripped into tiny gold puddles at the bottom. "Ma'am, you brought a fake ID to a secure federal area," he said to Evelyn. "That is a very serious offense." Evelyn's phone buzzed hard against her side. "Homeland Security. Critical alert," flashed across the screen. She moved to answer it. "Don't you move," Officer O'Malley ordered. "Suspects don't get phone calls." Chloe's live stream had surged to 250,000 viewers. Comments were flying too fast to read. "Destruction of evidence is a felony, and they're the ones doing it." The screen clicked. Flight 819 boarding, 26 minutes remaining. More security formed a loose perimeter around Evelyn. She remained still, her hands in plain sight, but the strap of her satchel had slipped again. The small chain attached to her federal badge was now glinting under the terminal lights. "Look at her, not a care in the world," Carla said loudly. "That's textbook criminal psychology. They act innocent, hoping you'll buy their lies." The businessman, David Chen, had now gone live on LinkedIn, broadcasting to his entire professional network. This is unbelievable. An airline employee in Atlanta just burned a passenger's passport based on nothing but prejudice. But others sided with Carla. An older woman nodded. She did the right thing. These crooks have to be stopped somehow. Robert Miller examined the charred fragments more carefully. He could just make out remnants of security watermarks that seemed far too intricate for a typical fake. These look awfully detailed for counterfeits, he mused. Carla's bravado faltered for a second. Top-tier forgeries. They're getting better at it every day. Evelyn's government phone rang again, but this time with a different, piercing tone. A priority alert that made several nearby passengers flinch. "That's a federal phone," remarked a man in a navy sweatshirt. "They have distinctive rings." "Criminals steal federal property all the time," Carla retorted. "It's probably all part of the same scam." Flight operations lead Maria Sanchez arrived with the cockpit crew. Captain Bill Davis assessed the situation with a frown. "We've got smoke and a police action at our gate," he stated. "What's causing the delay?" "A document fraud case," Robert told him. "Passenger tried to get on with what we believe was a counterfeit passport." "Believe was?" the captain asked, confused. "Why isn't it evidence?" "Because it was clearly a fake," Carla cut in. "Proper procedure is to destroy it on site." Evelyn finally spoke again. "Captain, all paper-based documents will burn. Their composition doesn't make them fireproof." The captain studied Evelyn for a moment. Her calm, articulate statement seemed out of place for someone caught committing a felony. The boarding screen updated. Flight 819 boarding. 22 minutes remaining. Evelyn's phone showed 17 missed calls from federal agencies. Her satchel had now shifted so the chain and a small corner of the badge holder were visible. "Ma'am, what is that in your bag?" asked a newly arrived officer, Jennifer Clark. Evelyn glanced down. "Personal effects." "More fakes, I bet," Carla declared. "I'm sure she's got a whole wallet full of them." Robert reached for Evelyn's satchel. "We're going to need to see all forms of identification." "I would prefer to present my own credentials," Evelyn said evenly. "You lost your preferences when you brought fake documents into a federal facility," Sharon snapped. The combined livestream audience was now well over 400,000. The hashtags GWAG Passport on Fire and DWIVE ATL Gate Agent were trending nationally. Comments demanded terminations and federal intervention. Captain Davis's radio buzzed. "Flight 819, this is ATL Tower. Be advised you have an indefinite ground hold at your gate." "Roger that, Tower. We have an ongoing security matter." Evelyn watched a piece of ash from her passport float past. The page containing her official visa for an upcoming G7 summit was gone, reduced to dust on the floor. "This is ridiculous," a man in first class complained. "Can't you just arrest her so we can board?" "We have to follow federal procedure," Robert said. "Fraud is a serious matter." Evelyn's satchel had now shifted completely open. Her Department of Transportation investigator badge was clearly visible to anyone who cared to look, but the assembled staff was too busy staring at her face. Carla poked at the ashes again. "See how it all just fell apart? Cheap materials, probably made in a garage somewhere." Atlanta Airport Police Sergeant Frank Miller arrived, summoned by the multiple reports of a disturbance. He looked at the burnt remains with a trained eye. "Ma'am, these appear to have features consistent with legitimate federal documents," he told Evelyn. "The burn pattern on these security threads is very specific." Carla's face hardened. "I've been doing this job for 20 years. I know a fake when I see one." 20 years of experience doesn't alter the laws of thermodynamics," Evelyn replied coolly. Sergeant Miller's gaze sharpened. Her technical precision and composure under pressure did not fit the profile of a common fraudster. The departures board showed Flight 819 boarding 18 minutes remaining. Evelyn's phone emitted the high-pitched federal emergency tone again. This time, more people recognized it. "That's definitely a government line," the Navy veteran said with certainty. "I've heard that tone at the Pentagon." "Stolen," Carla insisted, her voice now tight with desperation. "It has to be." Evelyn's satchel was now fully open, her credentials inside glinting under the lights. Sergeant Miller saw the shine of a gold emblem. "Ma'am, what specific identification is in that bag?" he asked, his tone shifting to one of professional courtesy. Evelyn met his gaze directly. "Federal law enforcement credentials, Sergeant." The words settled over the gate. Carla's smug expression finally cracked. Robert moved closer to see into the satchel. Sharon's eyes narrowed, trying to process what was just said. Captain Davis stepped forward. "What kind of federal credentials?" Evelyn reached into her satchel as hundreds of phones recorded her every move, and over 500,000 people watched online, waiting for the reveal. Evelyn reached into her satchel with measured calm. She pulled out a black leather ID wallet and set it on the counter beside the ashes of her passport. The gold Department of Transportation seal shimmered in the fluorescent light. She opened it deliberately. Her federal badge gleamed. Dr. Evelyn Hayes, Special Agent, Department of Transportation, Office of the Inspector General. The noisy chatter at Gate T7 died instantly. Carla's pen dropped from her hand, rattling on the floor. All color drained from her face as she read the credentials again and again, as if willing the words to change. "No. That's not real," she whispered. Evelyn placed her Federal Law Enforcement Commission book next to the badge. The embossed seal was the exact one that had melted into a golden puddle in the trash can. "Special Agent Evelyn Hayes, Doty OIG," she said quietly. "Badge number 713, full federal authority under Title 49, United States Code." Robert Miller's hands were shaking as he stared at the credentials. The holographic overlays were authentic. The official signatures were legitimate. The enforcement powers they detailed were terrifying. "You're a federal agent," he gasped. "Special agent," Evelyn corrected, "and you and your staff have just destroyed a federal agent's identification during an active field investigation." Sharon grabbed the credentials, her hands trembling as she searched for any sign of a forgery. But the departmental letterhead was real. The contact info for the U.S. Attorney's liaison was correct. Evelyn's photo stared out from the official ID card. "These have to be fakes, too," Sharon stammered. "Part of the scam." Evelyn produced her encrypted federal tablet and pulled up a secure portal. "You are welcome to verify my credentials using the National Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act registry. My commission ID is .OIG7132024. Sergeant Miller stepped forward, immediately recognizing the authority he was dealing with. "Ma'am, on behalf of APD, I apologize for this." "You were following procedure based on the information provided, Sergeant," Evelyn said. "Ms. Rodriguez, on the other hand, has just committed several federal felonies on a live stream witnessed by over 500,000 people." Carla stared at the passport ashes she'd created, the government seal she'd destroyed, the federal property she'd burned while a global audience watched. I thought it was fake," she mumbled. "It looked off." Evelyn took out an official notebook and began documenting the event. Subject Carla Rodriguez, employee ID 8194, willfully destroyed federal government property at approximately 9:42 a.m. Eastern Time. Physical evidence secured in trash receptacle. Witness count: approximately 150 passengers, plus live stream viewership exceeding 750,000 on multiple social media platforms. Captain Davis studied Evelyn's ID with a mixture of professional awe and utter horror. "Special Agent, what can we do to cooperate with your investigation?" "You can start by securing this area as a federal crime scene." Evelyn gestured towards the trash can. Everything in and around that receptacle is now material evidence in a federal prosecution. Chloe's live stream had passed 1 million concurrent viewers. The comments were a torrent of shock and vindication. Holy Psalm. She's a Fed. She burned a Fed's passport live. This is a major federal crime. Evelyn's emergency phone rang. This time she answered it. Hayes. Yes, Director. The operational objective has been met. Primary subject committed overt document destruction as projected. Full spectrum evidence capture is confirmed. She listened for a moment. Understood. Federal Response Unit is en route. ETA 6 minutes. Robert Miller's face went chalk white. Federal Response Unit. Evelyn continued her call with the calm authority that stood in stark contrast to the unfolding panic. We have over 150 direct witnesses and an estimated 1 million remote viewers. Video evidence has been captured from at least 20 distinct angles. Chain of evidence is secure. She paused again. Yes, Director. A textbook felony against a federal officer, captured in its entirety with maximum evidentiary value. Carla slumped into an empty gate chair, the full weight of her actions finally crashing down on her. It was supposed to be a fake, she whispered to no one, her eyes fixed on the ashes. It looked so cheap. It had to be a fake. Ms. Rodriguez, Evelyn said, finishing her call. Authentic federal documents look authentic because they are authentic. There is no special, cheaper-looking version issued to black federal agents. Sharon frantically tried to create distance. Special Agent, this was the action of a rogue employee. This was not sanctioned by the airline. Evelyn knelt and began carefully collecting larger ash fragments, placing them into evidence bags from her satchel. Title 18 of the U.S. Code makes no distinction between sanctioned and unsanctioned destruction of government property. The felony occurred. She took out her tablet and began taking methodical photos of the scene. The scattered ashes on the floor, the melted seal in the can. Screenshots of the countless live streams capturing the incident. Under 18 U.S.C. 1361, the willful destruction of government property valued over $1,000 is punishable by up to 10 years in federal prison and a $250,000 fine, Evelyn announced to the silent crowd. Carla's blustering confidence had completely evaporated. When the property in question is the credentials of a federal law enforcement officer engaged in an official investigation, sentencing guidelines recommend the maximum penalty, Evelyn continued clinically. Separate charges under 18 U.S.C. 1505 for obstruction of a federal proceeding carry their own 5-year sentences. The airport police officers now understood the magnitude of what had happened. An airline employee had destroyed a federal agent's credentials in front of a massive audience, and it was all on tape. Special Agent, Sergeant Miller asked respectfully, what was the nature of your investigation here at ATL? Evelyn closed her tablet and looked directly at him. A systemic review of discriminatory practices in passenger processing, specifically challenges to identity documents based on racial bias rather than legitimate security concerns. The catastrophic irony silenced everyone. Carla's prejudiced assumptions about a black woman in first class had led her to commit a felony against the very agent investigating that exact form of discrimination. Robert Miller looked at Evelyn's credentials one last time, praying they were an elaborate fake. But the federal watermarks, the micro-printing, the sheer authenticity of it all was irrefutable. Ms. Rodriguez is to be detained pending federal charges, Evelyn stated with quiet command. Destruction of government property, obstruction of a federal investigation, and multiple federal civil rights violations. Carla looked down. Passport ash was sprinkled across her airline uniform like dark, damning confetti. The proof of her crimes was physically on her person. Evelyn's phone rang. Caller ID, U.S. Marshals Service, ETA 4 Min. Your federal escort is arriving, Ms. Rodriguez, Evelyn informed her. I suggest you remain cooperative. The online audience watched, transfixed, as the power dynamic flipped completely. The woman they had watched being humiliated was now revealed as a high-ranking federal officer, methodically dismantling the careers of those who had wronged her. Evelyn bent and picked up a large, charred piece of her passport photo. Half her face was gone, but her federal agent credentials were now out, shining and utterly invincible. The aggressor had become the defendant. The victim was now the lead federal witness. And it was all preserved as incontrovertible digital evidence. Federal marshals in tactical vests strode into the terminal, their presence commanding immediate silence. Deputy Marshal Kenji Tanaka approached Evelyn. Special Agent Hayes, we're here to execute a federal arrest warrant. Evelyn gestured to Carla, who sat shell-shocked in her chair. Carla Rodriguez, employee ID 8194. Charges are destruction of federal property, obstruction of justice, and interference with a federal officer. A corporate VP, Jessica Albright, rushed through the crowd, her expensive pantsuit rumpled. A team of lawyers trailed behind her, already tapping on their phones. What is our company's legal exposure here? She demanded of Robert Miller. Evelyn held up her tablet. Under 18 U.S.C. 1361, your employees' criminal actions carry up to 10 years in prison. Your corporate liability under the doctrine of respondent superior could easily exceed $50 million. Jessica's face went pale. 50 million? That's for the criminal act, Evelyn clarified. Civil damages for the underlying civil rights violations under 42 U.S.C. 1983 are uncapped, and federal contract review could lead to a suspension of your operating certificate at the 142 airports you currently service. The airline's lawyers whispered furiously. Our annual federal contracts are worth $900 million, one hissed to Jessica. Evelyn pulled up another screen. Your airline has logged 17 prior passenger complaints against Ms. Rodriguez for discriminatory document challenges in the past 18 months. Robert Miller's hands began to tremble. We were aware of some complaints. 17 formal complaints, all from minority passengers, all of which were dismissed by local management without a formal review, Evelyn confirmed. That establishes a clear pattern of corporate knowledge and deliberate indifference to ongoing civil rights violations. Jessica snatched the complaint summary from Robert's hands, her legal team reading it over her shoulder with mounting dread. It was all there, accusations of racial profiling, overly aggressive scrutiny, and dismissive attitudes toward passengers of color. This constitutes corporate liability under federal statute, her lead counsel confirmed grimly. Deliberate indifference is the standard. The Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia, Mark Chen, arrived with his team. Evelyn gave him a concise brief as Jessica and her lawyers looked on, helpless. Total video evidence from 22 sources, including a live stream with 1.2 million concurrent viewers, Evelyn stated. Physical evidence is secure, and we have 17 prior complaints proving corporate knowledge. Prosecutor Chen inspected the evidence bags. This is a gift from the prosecution gods. A federal felony committed against a federal agent during an active civil rights sting, all on camera, with a documented corporate history of negligence. Jessica tried to mitigate the damage. We are prepared to cooperate completely. Ms. Rodriguez is terminated, effective immediately. We will mandate new diversity training. Evelyn looked up. Ms. Albright, termination is an HR matter. Your former employee committed federal felonies. Her criminal prosecution is a Department of Justice matter. Federal marshals cuffed Carla. Her uniform was dusted with the ash of the passport she had destroyed. The evidence was literally on her. I swear I thought it was fake, Carla sobbed as the cuffs tightened. It just didn't look right. Ignorance is not a defense against a federal charge, Prosecutor Chen told her coldly. Evelyn turned to Jessica. Your airline is now subject to immediate federal enforcement. A full review of your operating certificate begins Monday morning. All national gate operations will be subject to federal oversight. Jessica's team did the math. Federal oversight would cost them millions per month. Their stock had already plummeted 14% since the live stream began trending. An aide rushed up with a phone. The CEO is on the line. He says market confidence is gone. Evelyn displayed a final, devastating slide. Federal Aviation Regulation Part 139 allows for the immediate suspension of any carrier whose employees are found to have committed felonies that compromise security or civil rights. This authority covers your 9-12 daily domestic flights. The financial implications were staggering. What do you require to prevent a full suspension? Jessica asked, defeated. Evelyn's answer was swift and brutal. Immediate deployment of federally approved bias monitoring software at all 142 airports. Cost, $4 million. Mandatory federal anti-discrimination training for your 3,100 gate agents. Cost, $2.1 million. The creation of a federal compliance officer position that reports directly to my office. Minimum salary, $400,000. She wasn't finished. Monthly federal audits at your top 10 hubs. Fee, $200,000 per month. And the establishment of a $10 million compensation fund for passengers affected by discriminatory practices. Jessica's lawyers wrote furiously. The immediate compliance costs were over $20 million, with millions more in recurring annual fees. And the criminal case against Ms. Rodriguez moves forward regardless, Evelyn added. These corporate remedies address the systemic civil rights failures. They do not absolve criminal acts. Deputy Marshal Tanaka read Carla her Miranda rights as the cameras rolled. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a federal court of law. The departure screen for Flight 819 now read, Cancelled. Federal investigation. Jessica saw the crushing irony. Evelyn's entire investigation was designed to expose this behavior, and Carla had just handed them the perfect case on a silver platter. How long does the federal oversight last? Jessica whispered. Evelyn closed her tablet. Until my office certifies that your airline is in full and consistent compliance with federal law. Given the data, I project a minimum of 5 years. Federal forensic investigators arrived and began swabbing the area, collecting every last particle of ash. The story was now the top headline on every major news network. Evelyn's phone buzzed with requests from CNN, the New York Times, and the BBC. Special Agent, Prosecutor Chen asked, will you require a medical exam for the assault? Evelyn paused. The destruction of my federal credentials was a direct assault on my ability to perform my duties as a law enforcement officer. I will need that officially documented for the case file. Jessica flinched. Assault on a federal officer. The charges were getting worse. The battle was over. Evelyn had expertly documented every vector of liability, from Carla's personal criminal acts to the airline's massive corporate negligence. The company now faced a decade of crippling federal oversight and a criminal case that would redefine civil rights enforcement in the travel industry. Evelyn picked up a final piece of her incinerated passport. The document Carla had destroyed out of pure prejudice was now the cornerstone of a landmark federal case. Justice, Evelyn knew, wasn't about revenge. It was about systemic, federally mandated change. 3 months later, Federal Courthouse, Atlanta. Judge Alistair Franklin's gavel struck the wood. On the charge of destruction of government property, 18 U.S.C. 1361, this court sentences you, Carla Rodriguez, to 48 months in a federal correctional facility. Carla, now in a drab prison jumpsuit, wept silently. Your crime was not merely the destruction of a document, the judge intoned. It was an attack on the rule of law itself, aimed at a federal officer investigating the very prejudice you displayed. Evelyn watched from the gallery. A new, pristine passport sat in her briefcase. Outside, Prosecutor Chen addressed the media. This verdict is a warning. Targeting federal officers engaged in civil rights enforcement will be met with the full force of the U.S. Department of Justice. Department of Transportation, Washington, D.C. Secretary of Transportation Marcus Thorne signed the Aviation Equity and Accountability Act into law, with Evelyn standing directly behind him. This law mandates real-time bias detection technology at every TSA checkpoint and airline gate in America, he announced. The new system, designed by Evelyn's team, used AI to monitor interactions for patterns of discrimination, flagging incidents for immediate federal review. Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, Gate T7. The gate was now a model of federal compliance. Robert Miller, now the airline's regional director of federal compliance, oversaw a network of cameras and sensors that fed data directly to Evelyn's new division at the DOT. Discrimination complaints are down 92% in 6 months, he reported to federal auditors. A small, understated plaque now hung on the wall. This site marks a turning point in the pursuit of equal access for all travelers. Chloe Williams, the teen who filmed the incident, was now a freshman at Howard University, majoring in journalism and interning with the ACLU. My phone became a tool for justice, she said in a viral TEDx talk. It showed that one person, recording the truth, can help hold power accountable. Federal Aviation Administration Headquarters. Evelyn's new office was larger, her title now Director, Office of Civil Rights Enforcement. Her division had tripled in size and budget. On her desk sat a single framed piece of her burned passport photo, a constant reminder of the mission. The O'Hare incident had become the catalyst for the largest civil rights overhaul in the transportation industry's history, costing airlines over $500 million in federally mandated compliance upgrades. Carla Rodriguez's attempt to humiliate one black woman had backfired in the most spectacular way possible. It had not broken Evelyn Hayes. It had given her the perfect evidence to break a broken system. Her professional calm and strategic use of federal authority had ensured that the ashes of her passport became the foundation for a new, more just era in American travel. The incident, and its aftermath, proved that systemic change is possible when prepared professionals meet prejudice not with anger, but with the quiet, unyielding power of the law.